Hey folks, how are you? Thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to talk about some motion design fundamentals and we're going to do some logo reveals, everyone's favorite standard. I'm going to introduce a very specific set of requirements that you have to fit into. Maybe that way. And yeah, we'll get you going. We'll get you thinking about the bigger picture, the fundamentals of design. So a little dip our toes in there, and then we'll get into the technical side of how we can actually create two different styles. One very menacing, very big and important logo reveal, a little bit on the cheese side. And then we'll do a completely different one, and we'll have some fun, and we'll try to do like a little bit of maybe a stop motion-y style. All right? And we'll use After Effects, of course, to do that. But first, we need to learn, we need to know about... You like that? What a nice little transition there. Oh, perfect. We need to think about composition. The essentials of motion design really have a lot to do, very, very, very much to do with graphic design principles, okay? So I'll dip our toes in. I'll give you some resources in the coming weeks to further your own studies. But just note that graphic design makes good motion design, okay? So let's get into it. Let's have a look at what we're talking about. My favorite thing to do is to talk about crap, because I get to say that word, but also it's a really easy way to remember how to apply very basic principles to your work. Okay, so let's go. Repetition. I missed the big one. Repetition, alignment, proximity, and not to be left first but not last, definitely not least, C for crap, for contrast. All right, so let's go ahead down here and look at what we mean. There's this nice little design here on the internet from Paperleaf, which is quite good. So let's have a look. Contrast, that can be color, that can be tone, that can be direction, that can be big and small, okay? Round and square. So the more of that you have, the more you continue or push it through your work, the better, okay? Now, I'm going to, as we do this, I'm going to try to tie in the fact that motion design, and specifically editing, has to do with these principles, okay? So contrast can be all of these graphic design principles or elements, but they can also be over time, okay? So if you have a lot of contrast over time, you create that much nicer of a scenario, so of a visual experience, okay? And you can do that by having slow things and then lots of fast and then slow and lots of fast. And so that ebb and flow can really, over time, through your edits, can really bump up the visual delight in your customer. Okay, repetition, again, just, repeating elements throughout a design, throughout a brand is, pretty standard stuff, right? But also graphic design and having just specific elements, creating patterns. But also you can do that in motion design by repeating that same element over time. Very straightforward. The more you do that, the more of a nice visual experience it is, okay? Better for storytelling, okay? Alignment makes perfect sense, right? Having things aligned to each other for consistency, but also alignment to, say, rule of thirds or the golden ratio, okay? And again, just makes it nicer. Like, people like to compartmentalize, right? And have everything just where it should be, and it's nicer for your brain. And then proximity, So, you know, elements that are close together get grouped together. And so when you create stories, you can do that as well. But also you can do what's called, well, you can use proximity through cuts, okay? So as we go, if you have an element shooting over here, and then you cut to a new scene, and the focus is over here, then you can continue it on, okay? And so that proximity through that cut creates the element of having those two elements, even though they're not directly related, because they were in the same spot over that cut. You group them. Okay, so again, I'm dipping our toes here, and there's a huge expanse of knowledge out there. Not to mention lots of books in our libraries. Okay, and videos. LinkedIn Learning, really good stuff. I'm going to point us to some of those as well. Okay, so let's have a look at what we're doing. So crap, okay? First and foremost, it's contrast, and it will always be contrast, okay? I'm going to pepper you with that again, you know, a lot, okay? So let's have a look. Oh, are you moving over there? There you go. So principles, okay? So this is a bit of more of an expanded version of the CRAP acronym, okay? And Angie Taylor does a great job in her book, but also in LinkedIn Learning, which you have access to, of course. You can go and look in on Blackboard, okay? And I'm also a big fan of this Theory and Practice of Motion Design. The book is fantastic, and one of the authors, editor, talks about how animation allows a designer to translate exposition into a dynamic temporal experience, okay, to produce an understanding of a topic. So basically, again, we're doing visual stories, right? Visual storytelling, and using these principles, you can help tell your story. All right, so let's keep going. Then there's elements, basic graphic design elements. You can see though down when we get down here again. This is Angie Taylor. She's talking about staging, so using grids, but also the fact that staging is a principle, is one of the principles of animation as well. So having a good grand expositional stage for your elements is excellent, okay? And also just keeping that within a certain guide and also through time is excellent work. All right, so here's another one from the Design for Motion, or sorry, this is from the book Design for Motion by Austin Shaw. Excellent book, especially for pre-production. So we're creating tension in order to produce visual interest, okay? Contrast is the key right there, babies. Contrast, again, 100% of the time it's going to be contrast, all right? And like I said, directions, colors, shapes, and over time as well in our editing. Disparity in composition, okay? Excuse me, positive, negative space, dark and light, small and large. All of that helps. All right, so let's keep going. Okay, so I have, I've already mentioned that this is a repeated slide. Who put this slide in? Call the slide police. All right, so this gets us to Patrick Clare, who I'm a big fan of. He's a motion designer. He does lots of opening titles, opening movie and television shows and video games. Excellent work. Really creates some meaty environments. And what he talks about is focus and flow. Okay, and basically it means a person isn't looking at the whole picture, they're looking within it, and they're following your lead basically. So as a motion designer, you can make someone look over here and then look over there and look over here, and not make them work too hard, right? And lull them down, as you'll see he does here. I have his website up. He does that in Westworld, okay, where much of the cuts, especially for the first season, were all, and I'll go through this with you in class, but all of the cuts, your eye really doesn't have to do a lot, okay? It sort of lulls you into this false sense of security, as it turns out. But he also does, goes the opposite way. And I'm not going to play any of these, but just know that, there are certain excellent... Oh, are we all done? Yeah, Lovecraft is really good. American Gods is an excellent version of the opposite, where your eye is being smashed around the screen, and that creates that sort of tension, that tension that you want. All right. So yeah, focus and flow. So I will be returning to that idea and charting our eyes and so on. Okay, so we'll get into that as well. All right, so I'm going to cover some of these elements. I've covered these before, but definitely motion paths, okay? Parenting for sure. And then I definitely want to get type on a path today, and masking, okay? Track mats especially. I think I've touched on those before, but I definitely want to continue that. I will touch on extrusion and creating 3D, and you can create 3D elements and in natively in After Effects, but also you can you can get a 2.5D look with real 3D lights, which is an excellent thing to learn. All right, so let's go check out what our assignment was. All right, just so we have a clear idea of what we're doing. All right, so we're animating a logo, fully animated or blended with live action. So I will next week I will go over that with you, and we are going to include a tagline. Okay, so we're going to have the main logo. You can do your swishy swashy awesomeness there, but I also want some kind of tagline. Okay, some kind of descriptive text, however that works. So if you're doing your own brand, perhaps you animate words that are some of the services that you can provide. Okay, so let's keep going. We definitely want our sound effects and our music and time to the audio. Ensure the design is and motion design is consistent with the brand, purposeful, and uses appropriate principles of animation, sound, and graphic design. So let's get into the nitty-gritty here. Exactly 6 seconds, okay? I'm going to try to trip you up here, but I want it to be exactly, and I want it to be at 24 frames per second, okay? 1920 by 1080, so that is a horizontal, that is landscape, okay? No vertical video here. And we'll create an MP4 using the H.264 codec. So this is your submission. This is what I want from you. I want the After Effects file. So no plugins permitted. All right. That means that I want everything done by hand. Okay. You can use scripts that are here in After Effects to help your animation, but for this project, it's got to be clear and all done by you. For our next projects, we can have fun. You can use all the plugins you want. All right. So within the comments section, I need a description of the brand, unless it is a Google or a Coca-Cola or something that everybody knows. Okay. If it's your own brand, then you need to have a list of its services so that I can make sure that your brand fits the animation. All right. So let's get into the details. 10 marks for the graphic and motion design of the logo being consistent and utilizing at least 2 elements of crap. All right. So really easily here, just have lots of nice high contrast between your foreground elements and your background elements. Okay. And then also through time repetition, you can repeat design elements, but also repeat animated elements to bump up your stuff. All right, I'll leave that there for you. And then I need to have your animation be consistent and purposeful. And I'm throwing this at you. I want at least 2 of the principles of animation. Okay, one we already know is kind of a minimum standard, and really, you know, it's not good enough for motion design, but you know, as a career. But certainly easy ease or slow in, slow out is absolutely vital, okay, to my storytelling experience. And then if we have another one, perhaps we use anticipation, okay, or follow through, okay. So we get some kind of bounce, or I'm going to go over there, okay. There's all kinds of fun stuff to be had there. All right, we need, and then let's keep going. Our sound design, it's appropriate and it's time to the animation, and then a few more marks for a little bit of creativity. Okay, so let's get into it, folks. Let's go into After Effects, and you can see I've already brought in some of my files and I've already put them in folders. All right, highly recommend creating new folders and putting all your elements in here. So I just have I have 2 examples that I'm going to show you today, and the first one is going to be very serious, and we've got our ambient spooky stuff and our Tibetan chants and all that stuff. Let's see if I can get my sound back on there. And then we're gonna go more cartoony and have some fun. So what you won't see right now, just yet, right now in here in my project, is my Illustrator file. Okay, because I want to show you how important it is on the way we bring it into After Effects. So I'm gonna do my Faraday one first. And where are we going? Faraday, and I'm going to click on that once. Okay, so it's my logo, Faraday Cave Productions, and you can see right there I've gotten it from my client, and my client has, or I have, separated each of those elements into separate layers. Okay, in Illustrator, creating brand new layers, moving our elements over, and on purpose, okay, not like Photoshop, which it does automatically, because what we need to do here, is import as composition retain layer sizes. All right, that is critically important for this to work, because if you don't do that, it'll just flatten all of your elements and put them on a single layer, and that's useless for animating, right? So composition retain layer sizes, import. And I'll put that exactly in our thing. So if I just double click and open this, you'll see it'll look exactly like the Illustrator file. I can see we have sort of an extra thing there. What you'll also notice is I've created my own grid. There we go, guides. I don't know what's going on with that one, but I've made my own grid. Okay. I do that sometimes just because it's a little easier for me to work with. I do that, but also you can get it in here. You can choose your grids and guides, and like proportional grid. I'll turn that one off. Title and action safe, which is a bit of a holdover from our for our tube television days, but it's still good to know that you should just leave your especially text toward the middle. Okay, don't put it on the edge and expect people to be able to read it. All right, I'll turn that one off, and then you can get your grid, which, you know, in this case is pretty silly. You can also turn on your rulers, which then you can pull out your own guides, just like in Illustrator. Okay. So I've got my grid, and what I like to do is just turn it down very, very faint, and then I'll lock it. Actually, first, before I lock it, is I'm going to right-click on it and turn it into a guide layer. And what that does is you'll see it changes here, and now this will not render. Okay, it's just going to be there for me as I work. All right, so keep that in mind. All right, so you'll also note that this Faraday cave, if I go and click on it, is 1920 by 1080. Now, if I go Command or Control K, you'll see it's already set up to be exactly what the size we wanted, but our frame rate is not working, so we want 24. And then our duration, of course, that's just going to be random, and it might be, it'll probably be what you had last on there, okay? So the next thing I want to show you right here is this. So if I want, if I'm delivering something to a client and they want exactly 6 seconds, this is wrong. All right? That is wrong. And that is because our time code starts at 0. So we, in the normal world, we start at 1, right? And that way, this would be 6 seconds, okay? But if you're going to leave it at 0, that means we have to go back and change it to 5:23. And in this case, it's 23 because we're at 24 frames a second, all right? So this is, it looks like this is going to come out as 5 seconds and 23 frames, but because we have our 0 there, it's going to be exactly 6. All right. I'm going to leave the background as black, but in this case, it doesn't really matter. We're going to use footage, but keeping it black, you can always do a fade. You know, do your fade from black if you wanted that. I tend not to, and I'll show you why in a minute. I'm just going to turn my rulers off. All right. So for this logo, we're thinking big, epic scenery. So I'm going to show us this, and we can, ooh, isn't that awesome? We have this sort of time-lapse aerial shot, which is wonderful. So let's do that. We're going to have that for a second, and then we're going to come in with our logo. So I mean, like, big, epic, almost cliched, you know, fly through the logo. And we're going to change our environment and then switch over to do a transition to this final layout. All right? So let's do that. And what I want to do is I'll leave everything within this comp. For our next one, I'll make a brand new one, and I'll show you how we can work differently. All right, so of course all of these elements are going to come in later, so I'll just shovel them over a bit. But what I want to do first, before I keep going, because I'm going to forget, is that this circle and the middle shapes, these two are animatable, but I don't want to have to animate every single one of these. Every single time. So I'm going to take advantage of parenting. So I'll shift-click both of these, go over to my parent and link, grab my beautiful pick whip, and bring it to the circle. All right, so now I can move this any way I want, and it's going to remain in that spot. All right. So if you don't have the parent and link, you can just right-click somewhere, go column, and parent and link. Okie dokie, so let's keep going. The other thing that I recommend you do is turn on the shy guy. You see this little guy here? He's called the shy guy, and he hides the layer. So I can go up here now and go click, and then that guide layer is no longer visible. Okay, I could do that with these middle shapes if I started running out of time or out of space. Yeah, and it's just a way to keep everything sort of organized a little more. All right. However, for now, we don't need to worry about it. So let's keep going. So, all right, we've got our aerial view. We're going to come in. Everything's awesome. Maybe we can even speed this up. So I've got this stretch here. So if you don't have that, again, stretch. And that's just a really easy way to increase the speed of a video. Okay. So I'm going to... Oh, goody. Work area, current time, if caching, play, okay, yeah, good. So, come on. Yeah. Don't you just love when After Effects decides it doesn't want to work? It's just wonderful. All right, so trust me that we're shooting around here, and then what I'm going to do is move my background. So this is going to be coming out at us at this point, right? So we've got our thing, and then we're going to blip over to that. All right, so let's get our the productions in Faraday Cave. You're going to come out later as well, probably after that. Boop. All right, so the good thing about this, we've got our layout from our client, and we're going to leave it where it is. So I'm going to get my P for position, and actually, so there's two ways to do this. I could leave this as, I'll just twirl everything down, even though I usually use keyboard shortcuts. We could use scale for this, and that keeps it quite simple. But you can also make this a 3D layer. So right up here, this little cube makes a layer 3D. And now I can, instead of using scale to have my logo coming in, I can use position. You can see X, Y, and Z now. Okay, so that's pretty good. And but the other thing is that my other layers have to be 3D as well. So because they're parented and they weren't 3D, now I can move this. Yeah. So I think actually I'm going to leave it with this because I'm a big fan of keeping things simple. So the fewer elements you have animated, the better, I believe. And yeah, just creates a smoother look, smoother elements. And let's do a rotation as well. So I'm going to bring up my P and go Shift R, and now you'll see we can rotate it in all kinds of manners. We just want our Z. All right, so I'll make a keyframe for that, and now I'll hit U twice just to again close up my real estate there. All right, so we know that this is going to be the final position, but so I'm going to take these keyframes and just shoot them out of the way for now. And what I want to do is have this thing sort of come in slowly, really epic. We're moving through this thing, portal maybe, so I'll move you way out of the way. But I want it to come and sort of rest in the center. All right, so I could eyeball it, so I could grab my X axes and move you here. Or I could go get my align, which is right here. If you can't see it, window align. Okay, and then yeah, you just make it simple. Click. Cannot align or distribute 3D layers. All right, good to know. So we can just sort of, we could make it perfect by getting our ruler, and we know it's 1920 by 1080. So if we get a guide and we put it at 960 right there, so we're pretty darn close. There we go. No, that does not look it. Oh, it's 940. That's why. 1080, 940. 940 is right there. There we go. That feels better. Whew. Whew. All right. So I'm going to hide those again. And now I'm going to rewind way over to here. And now I'm going to go with my position and just pull. Oh. What happened to my inside layers? What happened to the inner shapes? Oh, that's what happened. The layer hadn't started yet. That's funny. All right, so now we can take our layer and shoot it up here, either there, or you can sort of grab it here and pull to just about where it'll come in. All right, looks like it's just moving over just a little bit there, so I wanted it to zoom in. Ah, so that's what's happening. You see, so After Effects, when you create a motion path, it likes to create Beziers out of that motion path. Okay, I'm going to change my view here to, instead of being one view, I'll change it to 2 views. All right, and this is where you'll be able to see. It'll default usually to the top view on this one, and active camera over here. Okay, so if I select my guy again, you can see that After Effects has decided, oh, you'll probably want a Bezier curve right there, and I don't. Right, I want this to just zoom in and come to a stop, and then and there you go. So what I'm going to do is grab my pen tool and just go to my convert vertex and just click that once, and then we're done. All right, so now I know my guy is going to come in, and then he's going to shoot over there. All right, we will want a bit of a pause, so let's take you a little further here, and we'll go just copy paste. So basically we're going to come in, and again I need to move you guys up a little further, coming through, and then it's going to move over. All right, so we've got it sort of mostly blocked out now, and I definitely want to save it. All right, so I don't need this view anymore, so I'll just go back to my one view, and in the coming weeks I will show you much more about the 3D environment. All right, so we'll keep it simple for now. We have our logos zooming in and then sliding over. So what I was thinking I wanted to do was, this first start here is going to be great. We have about a second or so of perfection. Everything's looking wonderful. And then on this outside, as we've come out, I'm going to affect this footage. So I'll maybe take some blur, maybe desaturate it, maybe add some noise or grain, or maybe the other way, maybe smooth it out and make it maybe misty or something like that. Okay, we're going for epic kind of smooth, dark thing right now. So there are a number of ways I can do this. I could go to my footage layer, and I could create a mask, and I could turn that mask into an effect mask, okay? Or I could get an adjustment layer and try to match this this animation. I don't like to do that. I like to just have one element be the animation, and then that's it. So what I'm going to do is go to a position where I know this is stopped. Yes, that was really good. That was not an edit, by the way. That was just After Effects deciding to stop. All right, I'm going to stop the recording, and hopefully get back on track. All right, we're back on track, I hope, for a bit anyway. All right, so like I mentioned, there are many ways to do this kind of transition where you're matching an effect for one layer based on the animation of another. Okay, so I need to affect this background layer by the animation of this layer. So again, there are many ways to do this. However, I'm a big fan of animating once, okay? Keeping it simple. So what I like to do is use a track matte for this instead of a mask. All right, so I'm just gonna go grab an ellipse tool, and because I don't have anything selected, I can just go click and drag out, and I'm making a shape layer. All right, so I'm just gonna make it slightly smaller than our layer, and I'm going to call this logo track matte. Right, we always name our layers. All right, like Ben Marriott would say. So what I want to do now is, now that I have this track matte here, I'll bring it down to the bottom. Okay, but I first want to parent it to that circle layer again, or not. Because it's not 3D, that's why I got messed up. So I want to parent that to the circle. Now it should be fine. And what I want to do is turn it into a track matte. So I need a duplicate of my initial footage layer. So Control or Command D. I'm going to say footage affected. All right, and I'll just name you footage. So footage affected, and I guess what we could do is just do that effect now so that we can see what's happening with it. So effect, let's see, I want to do color correction, of course, and maybe I'll just go down to curves is a fun one to use. But really, you can do it. You know, lumetri. Actually, I'll get back to that in following lessons, because it's an excellent tool. But actually, let's go hue saturation. This one's a fun and easy one to use, and does give you some more parameters. So I'm just going to take the saturation right out of there. You could colorize it too. So which might be something that that your client wants. Let's do that. Let's do blue, because it'll bring in our final logo. All right, and I'll maybe punch that saturation up a bit, and you can go a little bit darker. Sure, that's looking good. What else? Next one is a blur. I want to do some kind of radial, big blasting blur, so I'm going to go CC radial. And what I'll do is, instead of scratch, I'll do a straight zoom, and I'll just bump that up like crazy so that we get something really neat, really nice. You can affect the quality of that too if you wanted. I'm going to take mine down. Doesn't seem to have done much, but you know, when you're talking cinema quality, those will make a difference. Cool thing about this is you can animate that, but I'm not going to worry about it. All right, so I've got that on my footage affected, and now I want to only have it work not within the circle, so it's going to be an inverted matte. So I have my logo track matte above it, and I can't see where my track mattes are, and that's because I have my switches open. This whole thing is called the switches, all right? And you can see down here at the bottom, toggle switches modes, all right? So I'm going to click that over, and now I have my modes, which is a lot of fun. Blend modes, there's even more available than Photoshop. But for now, I'm going to go to my track matte, all right? So footage affected, track matte, alpha matte inverted, logo track matte, okay? And now you'll see that everything within this circle will look good, and everything beyond it will be fine, will be affected. Okay, and the great thing about this now is that I don't need to worry about if I change the animation on my circle, I don't have to keep doing it with my affected footage. All right, so that's going to look pretty good. And I think, you know, at this point, we're going to zoom right over to here, so we don't need to worry about anything beyond that. So that's looking good. I'm happy with that. You know, we get that kind of spooky kind of thing. We'll add some spooky music, and we'll be set. All right, so let's keep going. We've got it coming to a rest here, and again, the great thing is I don't have to worry about too much animation here. What I'm going to do, once I have the look set up, I like to reduce the quality of my RAM preview. I'm just doing animation now, so I don't need it to look perfect. Okay, so I'll just reduce that. So it's going to come in, and then we are going to zoom over, and I'm going to have sort of right in here, right in the middle of this sort of move, it's going to switch over to our illustrated background. So I'll bring that BG right in about there. And for these animated animation, obviously this is just linear, right? These keyframes kind of hurt me right now. So my go-to is just hit F9 for the basic easy ease, and then go into my graph editor. And you'll see sometimes it messes it up like this. You can always sort of hit these two guys down at the bottom to show you what's going on. And for me, I just need the two that I have selected, and all I'm going to do is just pull these out and get that nice sexy curve. All right, and you should be able to set this up. Yeah, auto zoom graph height. So now it'll follow me. It'll update it, and instead of pop out of there. So now I have this sort of nice sort of. There's a bit of anticipation with this movement here, right? It's like that's going to attract the viewer's eye, and then as soon as they look there, then the thing is moving. And we get that nice sexy motion out. All right, okay, and a nice follow through. So I'm in the middle here, and maybe I just have my BG sort of, I'm hitting T for opacity, and I'll bring you in, you know, relatively fast, but not a straight cut. Yeah, just something like this, maybe even faster. There we go. Okay, and of course now we need our productions and Faraday cave elements to come out. Oh, I have one thing I've forgotten to do, and that is really that's a rookie move, Neil. So I'm on third. If I go to full, you can see. And if I go to full 100%, you can see that my vector graphic is not looking very good. And that is because After Effects does not default to continuously rasterize, which is After Effects' way of saying continually draw your vector graphics. So you need to tell it to do that. And you do that by clicking these buttons there. And you'll see, oh, and I did it for the wrong one, so I'll just do it for everything. And now look at that. Gorgeous, beautiful graphics that will look excellent no matter how much they are scaled. Okay? So keep that in mind. If you're going to scale up graphics, you need to hit the continuously rasterize button. All right, so there we go. So now we're going to flip this over, and okay, we've got our Faraday cave and productions. I'm going to hit P for position, and keep that there because we know that that's where our final position is. And now for this one, I'm just going to grab these and push them over. And of course, they're going to be hidden here and reveal themselves, and maybe just you know, a bit of offset there, just to well, maybe wrong one. Maybe I like the productions coming in next. Yeah, something like that, just a bit. All right, so now we want to hide this. There are a number of ways, of course, we can do that. Again, we can use track mats, but one of the things for something like this that's just a quick sort of motion, I'm going to use a it depends on your workflow, but it might not be the best, the most efficient to you, or may not seem like it, but there's a way of us being able to use a mask on these layers without having to counter animate, right? If I put a mask on the Faraday cave layer and the productions layer, I would have to animate the mask going the opposite way of my motion, right? Which is just silly. So what I want to do is I could use a track mat, right? Or I could precompose. And so I'd have to, for a track mat, I'd have to either make two of them or precompose, or I'm going to precompose. Okay, so I've selected both of these, right click and say precompose. All right, and then you'll get your you're basically creating a brand new comp. So I'm just going to call it tagline comp. All right, and it's nicely going to trim that for me. I don't need to open it yet, and you'll see now if I hit P, there's no animation. The animation is within that comp. So now on this comp, I can do a very, very simple mask. Okay, so I'm going to go with that layer selected, get my ellipse tool, and grab this guy here. And what I'm going to do, oh, and I have a ruler there. There we go. So what I want to do is basically just follow this, and of course it defaults to an additive mask. We want a subtractive mask. So now this is going to come and follow that. So I have to do a bit of animation on my mask because it's following the circle layer, right? And I can shoot that over. I could do the mask path. I could parent it. Actually, let's try that. You can see down in the mask path, you can see that there is a pick whip. So let's try that. I'm going to take off my path, and I'm actually going to, I'll move this here, because when you parent is important. So where you are on the timeline is important. And so I'm going to put it there, and I'm just going to test this, see if it works, and go to the position of that layer. So now, nope, didn't work. Yeah, it's going to the shape of that. So that's not going to work. So I do have to animate it. I'm sure there is another way of making that work a little better, but it's for something this easy, for this simple, I'm just going to do something very, very simple. All right. All right, so we have our logo coming in and our footage being affected, and then it's going to zoom over to there. All right, there we go. Don't need those open. I'll just shy you away. And here we go. Circle, Faraday cave. What did I do? Oh, I was looking for my two guys, but they're right here. So, of course, we need to, now I want to go in here to this animation, and see how it's looking, and maybe, you know, maybe play with this, maybe have it a bit more of a sexy move, just like the other one, right? We want it to be consistent. There we go. Go back out here. Beautiful. I'm just gonna take this one. Yeah, just so there's a bit of that offset. I'm just a big fan of having animation, just a little bit of variety there. Okay, and that's basically it. We've got our, you know, very simple tagline, very simple. And now we want to, you know, oh, and, you know, just so you know, there are transitions within After Effects. We don't have to do this BG kind of just, you know, coming in like that. We could do some cooler transition. But the good thing is now, I'll save this here, we have all of this time. We have about 3 seconds, almost half of the whole thing, that we can do something, you know, else, some kind of cool element. And I forgot the rotation, so let's do something like that. Of course, I want that to be, and I don't want too much here, just a little bit of that to come in. I'm going to go back to my quarter. Yeah, so that's feeling a bit better. So I have that, and I could do some other animation on my other elements, right? So I'll just make some, I'll hit R for U and Z, and maybe as we get here, maybe one is going this way and the other is going this way, and then they're going to come in for a landing. All right, so that we get something, yeah, just a little bit of something different going on, a little bit extra animation in there. All right, so, and then we swoosh over, and now we have all this time at the end. We could do a wipe, whoosh, which might look fun, which is a pretty standard, pretty easy or straightforward thing to do. We could do, you know, some kind of let's try something here. What I'm going to do is actually duplicate these, okay? Right here, I'm going to duplicate. So Control D to duplicate. I'll move you all up, and I'll just start this. I'm hitting Alt and left square bracket to start this, these elements here. And I'm just going to precompose this. Okay, so right click precompose. I'll just call it logo blur blurred. All right, and what I want to do is make this thing some kind of blur, and actually it's right here, whatever you used last. But if we go to distort, there's all kinds of effects we can try. But yeah, let's just try CC Radial Blur, because what you'll get, oops, we don't want that. We want a centered zoom, and what we can do is have that, we could just do some kind of swooshy thing like that. All right, now it seems to be, there we go. Okay, we'll just do one of those whooshy whooshes. All right, so I'll do my, there, I definitely want this to be high quality, and I'm going to animate the center. So I'm going to hit U. Keep in mind now that this is on top, so I could bring it down so that I don't affect the thing beneath it. But what we can also do is turn this, go to my blend modes and play with a different blend mode to get some kind of rich, you know, something a little more meaty. And I'll change that up in a second. So what I want to do is have this sort of just be a quick sort of wash type of thing. We'll go down to 0, and I want my center to be there on that point, and it's going to come out whoosh. And I think my center, yeah, we're going to go right from to that. Is that what I did? Yeah. And so we'll go to this, to the amount, and then we'll go back down. So I'll just take the copy paste, and wow. Zoom. Wow. Okay, so that's looking terrible. So we definitely want to animate that, and we want to animate our center. I'm going to hit B on the keyboard so that my my preview is only going to be here. And maybe I'll just have it come out and then fade. So as a fade, I can actually take the opacity of this layer. So I'll hit U again, and so yeah, my amount's going to come right up to the top and then zoom out. Okay, so this is going to go something like that. Wow. I do need it. You can see it's popping on there, so I do need my opacity to work its way in. And it's a little slow, but we can ramp that up. Woo! We've got some. Oh yeah, because I have the speed. So I want value here, and I just want it to go real fast. Where is my centaur? There we go. And speed. Oh, there we go. I'm going to move you up and shoot you out. It can probably go a whole lot faster. Does not need to be at the end here. Boo. Okay, I mean, you know, I could tweak this for a long time. We can also do a straight wipe and all kinds of glows. You can also, I'll bring this back up since we're looking at it. You can also, oh, I mentioned the modes. So what I like to do is actually come in here with my keyboard shortcuts. Okay, so I'm going to hit Shift and plus, and what you'll see is it's actually going to cycle through all of the available blend modes, and divide is looking pretty neat. And it's always going to be different, so I do suggest you do this. Quite a few of them won't be of any use to you, but you might get something like, if you're interested in a much hotter version of it, or you could go the opposite and go much cooler, or you could do both. You could duplicate this thing again and do both. And you can hear my, I don't know if you can hear my computer fan trying to render that out, so I won't I won't make you do that. Anyway, so blend modes can be a lot of fun, and so what I'll do is I'll just leave that there just as a simple or spooky kind of logo reveal. And now I want to put in my sounds. Okay, so we've got our our ambient spooky. Oh, and I need to turn my speaker on again. Let's see, is it gonna work? Nope. So if you're not getting any audio, you might have to go to preferences and audio hardware. I might just have it, yeah, so it should be working. It should be working, yes, good. There we go. Alright, so if you're bringing in music to After Effects, what you can do is double click it if it's a long, like this is a minute 10 or whatever. So you can just go through here, find the spot you want if you remember where it is. And mine is, it's just doing that because it's just Bluetooth. But what you can do is actually go in here and trim it, so that when you bring it in, it will be trimmed to that spot, okay? And then you can go in here and pull these down, pull down the waveform so you can actually see what it looks like. All right, so what I'm gonna do is just have this sort of coming in. I'll make my keyframes for it to ramp up, okay? So it'll won't shock you. And about here, I'll bring in this, I have a Tibetan chant thing going on that we can get some interesting results, interesting spooky kind of elements here. So, I'll just make you there and bring you down to about there. I'm gonna hit Alt and right square bracket just so that it's clean. Looks good, and then I'll take at the end, we want, of course, this is supposed to be epic, so we need to fade that out at the end, and I'll do the same. Keep in mind when you're doing audio that that the more you add, the higher it'll go. It'll go over and be it'll start clipping, and so you need to reduce the volume levels for each element. Okay. Feels good. And I could do a little, you know, more there, but I think we're good for now. And of course, I'm going to save that and render. So composition, add to media encoder. And let's see what we can make. The great thing about the media encoder, of course, and the whole raison d'etre is that it will load up its own standalone app that you and render while you can still work in After Effects. Didn't always used to be that way. Back in the day when I was a kid, you needed to do this, you needed to sit there. And so usually, and when I say kid, I mean in my first compositing job, where I was compositing an animation show, you'd have to do all your work and then hit render and, you know, go have a break because you couldn't keep working. But now you can. So let us start fresh. All right, I'm going to close that out so it does not confuse us. And what I want to do is I need to bring in my new logo, of course. So let's go and find where that logo went. Hold on a sec, bear with me here, folks. And your graph Fetuno para projects. There we go. And all right, so now we're doing our logo, of course, here. And just like, whoop, my meeting encoder popped up. All right, so it should default to H.264. You can change the presets in here. Match source high bitrate, so the one right up at the top should work. And you can also get other presets in there. Or if you're going to post it up on the internets, you can go to the social media presets, and then an output file is just going to ask you where you want it to be. All right. You can see I didn't change my comp. Okay. So so I would of course want to change that, right? So this would be Faraday. But if you're doing a I'm just gonna hit play. If you're back here and I'm in my Faraday, was this it? Yeah. So if I hit Command Control K, I would of course want this to be A3 or whichever one it is. Logo reveal. I would say Faraday. And then Neil VDK, and then of course version 1. And the reason I would do version 1 for my comp is that you can, if you try something new, you can always come in here and Control or Command D and duplicate it, and as many times as you want. Okay, it's going to be using the same source files, but your animation, your effects, everything in there can be different. All right, so keep that in mind. All right, so I am now going to change logo Faraday. I'm going to put you in your folder, and I'm going to go get that one there. So I'll go to Ogle and just find my layer. So I've got my logo, and I want to import it as composition, of course. All right. And put that in its all there. Perfect. So this one, if I double click on it, you can see it is, if I hit Control or Command K, it's 500 by 500, and that just doesn't work. Okay, so what I want to do here instead is not import. I want to right click and create a new composition. All right. And so 1920 by 1080, which is great. Now it's defaulting to my previous comp, which is awesome. It's exactly what we want. All right. Logo reveal Ogle. And it's 6 seconds, and we're good. All right. So for this one, and I'm going to put you where you should be. For this one, I'm going to obviously bring in my comp and maybe scale that up a little bit. Basically, I'll just keep it simple for this one. Definitely want to do that. And I'm going to go for this sort of paper texture style thing. So I'm going to bring this in. I got this paper texture from Humble Bundle, which is great. And it's obviously very, very, oh no, it's 1920, which is great. Oops, there we go. And so we get this kind of crackly paper texture going. And yeah, the rest I will just play with here. So for this one, we've got our logo. I'm just going to keep this one very, very simple so I don't bore you. Let's put it right in the middle here. And what I wanted to do is have this guy sort of pop in like a balloon, and then just sort of do a little bit of fun animation using Wiggler. The Wiggler is my favorite tool. And then we'll get a tagline, and I'll show you some examples of how we can animate text. All right, so let's start it off. We've got S for scale, P, don't need to worry. Yeah, let's do rotation, so Shift R, and we'll grab all of those guys and we'll put them right where they should be. And now I'm gonna basically have this sort of thing pop into existence. So obviously we'll go to 0 and it's gonna pop. All right, I'm just gonna take off this background texture just so we don't need to worry about that for now. And what I want to do is just take this, I want it to go really big, take over the whole space, and then go back. Okay, pop. So this is way too slow. Pop. Okay, and of course we need our eases. Pop. Pop. Good, and I might want it to be, you know, do a little, maybe it goes down a little more and then comes back up to where we had it. Pop. Pop. That feels good. Okay, so we'll get that sort of plasticky sort of feeling about it. Boing, 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 boing. Okay, it's looking great. I'm super happy about that. But you know, we could still have a little bit more fun with it by distorting it a little more. So let's try adding a distort. And one of the go-tos that works really, really well is straight up bulge, and it's just, you know, like you might imagine, you're going to pull that thing out. You could try magnify, although then we get, you know, it just kind of magnifies. Yeah, that's not going to work. Scaling, soft. No, there's a link. That's interesting. There's a feather. Yeah, so that doesn't work for me. I'm just going to go straight up and use this distort and bulge. So it comes in pretty small, so we need to make sure it's big enough. Okay, and you can already start to see that it's going to bulge, and we could even animate this too, so keep that in mind. So yeah, I'm gonna pull you in high. Definitely want you to not look too bad, and then we'll get a bit of a taper radius here going. Maybe make this a little bigger, and then we're good. All right, so we don't need too much. We don't want it to, you can see it's already starting to get pixelated in there, but we are going to affect this quite substantially. So I don't think we need to worry too much, but yeah, that'll be good. All right, so of course we want to animate that, and I might even do the radius there. So I'll hit U now, and I'll have you popping out from there. From here, bulge height is going to be 0. And then we'll go back. Maybe here we have negative value. Okay, go back here, maybe a plus value. And here we'll just go back to normal. And of course, easy easing. Alright, so it just adds a little more life to what would otherwise be just a straight scale. Okay, I could bring these in a bit more. And move that a little bit. There we go. We can affect the taper, which can get you some interesting results. There we go. Oh, that's why that's happening. There we go. So I don't need to do that after all. Perfect. All right, so we've got that, and it's going to pop in. So I'm going to save this. And now what I want to try is just to have this sort of animating in place this whole time. and having some fun. So I'm gonna pop you in. I think I'm gonna play with the taglines for a bit first. So yeah, I'll move this over a bit. And so what I want to do now is grab my positional keyframes, and I'll just do this right from more or less the start here, and I'll go right to the end, and I'll make another keyframe, and I'll do the same for rotation. Okay, I could do the same for scale, but we could make this 3D and maybe affect it there, but let's keep it simple for now. I'm going to introduce a little bit of random motion here. Okay, so I've made a keyframe for this and at the end, and I've selected the word position, which means now I'm going to I have both keyframes selected, and you need that in order to use the wiggler. And what this means is that, and if you don't see it, just go to Window Wiggler. Basically, it's a tool panel that will basically introduce a script and create some random keyframes. Okay, so I want my noise type to be jagged because I want this sort of stop motion dimensions all independently, and then per second. And so position, how many pixels do I want this to move? Let's try 21 for now and click apply. And you'll see that 5 times per second this thing is going to move around. So that's looking pretty good. It's going to pop in there and have yeah, some random motion. Okay, I could, since they're still selected, I could even right click and toggle hold keyframe to get even more of a sort of randomized sort of pattern here. That feels a bit more robotic though. And I'm going to use, instead of that, I've undone that. I do want the motion, but what I'm going to do actually later is apply an effect that will essentially reduce the frame rate, and you'll get that sort of more choppy look. Okay, so I have you moving around. I want to do the same with my rotations. Might not do as much in the magnitude there, maybe a little less in frequency. Let's try this and see how it goes. That's looking pretty good. I could go probably a little less magnitude. Let's try that and hit apply. Yeah, just so we have a bit of that motion popping around. Okay. So there we go. That's our motion. That's our logo reveal. We have revealed our logo. Woohoo! So let's bring in some kind of tagline, right? We wanted, I'm going to have this sort of going a little bit backwards because in here I wanted to say, I'll bring you down here as well, have some sort of words scattering around. Maybe for this one I'm just going to play with a motion path for my tagline, okay? So I'll just turn that off again just to keep it out of the way. And what I want to do is go get my pen tool, and I need to write my tagline. So for this logo, Ogle Corporation, we're going to, it's going to be playful, so we're going to say something like, for the kid in all of us, we make fun. We make silly fun. We put the fun in silly. We put the silly in. You can tell I'm not an advertising guy. All right, so let's we make it fun. We make it fun. How about that? We make it fun. And of course you can't see that because it's probably creating it in black type. So for this, let's go over to our keyframe here so we can see our logo, and we'll grab our logo colors. All right, so Myriad Pro, this is where I like to just select that. Actually, let's have a better look at it. So we'll make this a bit better. I also like to right click and transform and center anchor point, so that if I were to align this, which of course I want to, it will work for us. Okay, so I'm going to put that up here because when this logo comes in, I do want it to pop in here. All right, so we make it fun. It's great. It's just wonderful. Oh, I gotta select my text again. Okay, and you can see I've put the anchor point in the middle of the layer, but this is a text layer, so it acts differently. It's the anchor point for the actual text is still at the bottom left, as it always defaults to. I'm just going to grab this and try some different fonts. I do highly recommend to try Adobe font. It is yeah, it's right in here, dynamically linked. But for our sake, we'll just do this until we see something silly or something that could actually work. Perfect. Ink free. Wonderful. So I'll hit enter for you and see if you can actually, if there's, no, there's only regular, so I might just go into my fake one there. And then we'll take this down, bring it back to earth a little bit. All right, I want to move my position, pop, it's going to go there, and yeah, I'll just move you right up, pop. All right, so it's going to pop around there. So now I have this text. So this is a text layer, which means we have a lot of options available to us, okay? We can use a preset. So I highly recommend to go and look at them. Go Effect and Preset, and you'll see animation presets, and then you'll see text, and there are many different options for you. It is worth knowing about these. However, they can be incredibly cheesy. I'm going to start my guy here. They can be incredibly cheesy, so be forewarned. Let's see. Let's look at miscellaneous, and we'll go 6 shooter. What is that gonna do to our thing? Okay, wow. So that's no good. Bungee. Whoa, wow, okay. So it's doing some weirdness. I'll undo that. Clay pigeons, what's that gonna do? Pew, 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 pew. Hey, that's fun. It's obviously opposite, so I would hit U on the keyboard, grab that, and right click, keyframe assistant, time reverse keyframes. So some of these are fade ins or animate ins, some are animate outs, and you can very easily just change that. Hey, that's kind of fun. You'll also notice that these are very slow, okay? So what we want to do almost every single time is blast that in way faster than you would normally, or way more than the normal speed. And that's because no one wants to look at a animation preset, okay? That kind of feels neat. It's interesting. We got a bit of life to it. Yeah, we could make that even faster. I don't know that easing that will work, but at least it's fast, okay? And now we're going to do the same thing with our position, and we'll make it wiggle around. So let's go here, and we'll go down to, or up to our wiggler, and jagged, and so oh yeah. So you need to select the keyframes in order to get these. Yeah, and I'll just keep this one simple. Yeah, because you don't want to have that, you want to give it a bit of life, but not too much. And you need to be, and most importantly, we need this to be legible, right? So we want to just give it a little bit of life, but also not too much so that we can read it. You also want to make sure when you have text on a screen that you are able to read it 3 times. We make it fun, we make it fun, we make it fun. Perfect, okay? So you need to, and that's for you animating, you need to give someone who reads slower that much time to understand what's happening, okay? So now we have all this space at the beginning, and we can try, we could do something different. Hey, let's take a brand new, let's do our motion paths now. So I'm going to duplicate, actually I'm going to leave that alone. I want to start fresh, okay? Yeah, let's duplicate it just to keep it consistent. And I'll bring you way back here. I'll hit U because I definitely want to take off this animator. You can, so those animation presets are called animators, and I'm going to delete that one. I'm also going to delete the position, because here I want this thing to be shooting around and following some kind of interesting, weird path. So what we do is select our layer, okay? I'm going to say on a path, just so it's clear later. All right, and what I want to do now is draw a path. With this selected, I'm going to zoom out a bit. I'll grab my pen tool and I'll start it off screen just so it can come in something like this. Maybe it'll go around here, it'll go around there, maybe it'll go up here and down here and through there. Something like that. And then one last one. Oh, there we go. So it'll zoom off there. So I have this random splosh that really technically is the start of a mask. I could complete this and create an actual mask on this layer, but I don't want to do that. I'm just going to leave it open, because what it's going to do is create a path, or allow us to turn that into a path. So we look on our text layer, we go down and you'll see path options, and we can point it to that mask one, which now instead of a mask, it's going to actually put your text on a path, which in my case is right off my screen. I need to go to my first margin and animate it. Okay, so I'm going to start from 0 and go way, all the way through here. And the longer the path you make, the longer it takes to scrub, and it might have been an idea to just type in something. And there we go. All right, so now, whee! Isn't that fun? If I put it on a motion blur, you'd get something like this, which could be fun. Okay, obviously that's really fast, so maybe we zoom it slower, and maybe we take off the motion blur so that it's, oh, did I take it off? Yeah. Yeah, that'll feel better because we're going to make this into a stop motion thing. So there you go, this feels good. I'm going to have, and what I'm going to do now is actually duplicate this. And I can take that path, if I wanted to, the mask, select the actual mask path. If I duplicate it, I can actually change it to be completely opposite. But it'll still, yeah, the text will actually still be there. So now I'm getting a bit of that crap, right? I'm getting repetition of those elements, okay? Yeah, so they're gonna just shoot around, have some fun. Maybe I'll do it one more time, and for this one, I'll just rotate it, just so it's, whoops, just so it's completely different. There we go. It's also, I could maybe offset these, okay? Because we don't need this on for this amount of time. Maybe you can be a bit faster. We'll move you to there. There we go. So now they're a bit offset, so they won't feel like robotic versions of themselves. All right, so we have all these. I might even play with blend modes for these once I get in my background here. So let's select that. Let's go to screen. Nah, that's not gonna work. We want something a bit more fun. Ooh, overlays looking good. I like that. Perfect. All right, got it coming in here. I do want some kind of something at the beginning. So yeah, anyway, I'll do some kind of transition at the beginning. So I've got all these, and then what I want to do is just, as soon as this thing pops in here, and I'll put it right on top so that it can clear, I'm just going to take all of these and stop them right at this point. Okay, so boom. And you can see, even though they do disappear completely, because they're moving around, you probably won't notice them, and this giant thing is smashing you in the face. And then we've got our make it fun. Okay. Pop. We make it fun. And you could bring them back in later on or whatever. Who knows? Who knows? All right, so let's do one more thing, because again, part of our element is contrast, right? So we want this maybe to really stand out. Okay, so I could add a stroke to the text, but I don't want to do that. I'm just going to go get a simple layer style, layer style, and drop shadow. Boom. And see how much nicer that feels popping out already. I think that's a bit too much, so I'll take that down a little bit, and you can see that yeah, there's a, we can soften it up and make it blend into that background that much easier. All right, okay, so the last thing I want to do is some kind of transition at the beginning. I thought maybe I would just take this sort of simple shape. I'm going to deselect it, and I'll go with the polygon tool. And while you're drawing, if you hit up or down arrows, you can turn this into a triangle or a square. But because it's a polystar, I can change its roundness. So I'm basically trying to copy this sort of shape here. And I will change its color. Yeah, maybe we'll go with that one there. All right, so I want this to be my sort of transition here. Transition. And of course, that means that we need to transform center anchor point, and we'll just do a straight up scale. So we'll go from fully, completely on to completely gone in a very short time. Maybe not one frame, but. And with this one, I want it to go a little faster. So, okay, stop playing. And I'll F9U. There we go. Yeah. Yeah, that's going to probably work. Yeah, we want it to go, we want it to get faster, right? So, that feels good. Maybe even a little faster. We just want that to be fun. We make it fun. All right, so we're getting there, but like I said, I wanted this. Oh, and I might even make this. Yeah. Use its inherent motion blur to fade off those lines, just to give it a little sort of a sense of glow, maybe. And the last thing I want to do is actually create an effect that will reduce the frame rate to get an even more sort of choppy stop motion-y look. So layer, new, and adjustment layer means a completely invisible layer that we can put affects on, or effects I should say, to affect our layer, our stuff. Okay, and adjustment layer, time, and so I'm going to go effect, time, posterize time. All right, and what that's going to do is give me the option to reduce the frame rate, which it's going to default to there. Oh, let's try 10 and see what happens. So you can see right away we get a much more sort of choppy look, and it's much more in keeping with our style. Okay. There we go. All right, so I'm happy with that. That's looking pretty good. One thing I didn't do was play with the idea of this logo being maybe affected by what's underneath it. So if I were to use a blend mode, I could get away with that, something like this, right? So you can actually see the elements beneath it, but you start to lose the what's one's this? That one might work. Hard light. You start to lose the brand, right? The colors get messed up. Okay, so even though I kind of like that, what I suggest is not to affect the layer that way. What we can do is actually have a displacement map. So effect, distort, and displacement map. And then what we'll need to do is put the displacement map layer and point it to our texture. Okay, so you can see here it's already starting to gridify that. And we can make this really big so that it's completely unusable, or we can just do it just a little bit so that you get that texture popping through. Okay. Again, these will feel a bit more. All of these elements will feel a bit more connected by doing this. All right. There we go. We've got our animated logo. I would definitely do more with the motion pass. I would probably have some, maybe the logo itself, or maybe the words fun pop here and there, but this is a good start for us. All right, so I'll save that off and render it, and this time it should go quite well, quite quickly. There we go, and save and done. So how did we do, folks? Whoa. There we go. What's going on? Ah! Are we good? Did we get there? Are we happy? Oh geez. There we go. All right, so I hope you got some tips and tricks out of this and are ready to sort of put your little motion design piece together. As I mentioned, in the coming weeks, I will push the idea of these motion design fundamentals, the idea of focus and flow, and definitely contrast. I'll introduce the idea of contrast and affinity as well, which comes, I believe it was Austin Shaw talking about motion design. So there you go. Thanks a lot, everyone, and happy animating. Ciao.